So workshop number 2 will focus on preservation, which is really the act of limiting damage. A lot of times people think of conservation and preservation as the same thing, but conservation is really its own field that has to do with repairing objects. It's kind of beyond the scope of this workshop, but uh, preservation, as defined by the Society of American Archivists, is the professional discipline of protecting materials by minimizing chemical and physical deterioration and damage to minimize the loss of information and to extend the life of cultural property. So extending that life is really what we're talking about here, mitigating damage. So basic principles of preservation, leave no trace. I kind of borrowed that from the outdoors mantra and hiking. You just want to make it seem like you were never even there. Handle with care. Use both hands usually when you're dealing with archival materials or big flat boxes. They tend to bow in the middle. Keep objects dry. Store in a cool, dark place. Eliminate pests and pollution, and use archival materials. And that's really important. And I'll provide a list at the end for you of archival resources. So leave no trace. Use pencils always when you're working with archives. I think they make archival pens, but pencils are really kind of best practice. And no permanent highlighters or markers either. Adhesives really are problematic also. Scotch tape dries to things. Post-it notes don't age well either. And they do make archival glues, but it's best if you can just not use adhesives. And fasteners are also problematic, like just in general, metals rust and cut. So no paper clips or 3-ring binders. If they aren't stored in the right climate, they will rust and they will tear things. Rubber bands will dry out and adhere to things. And with regard to handling with care, just always washing your hands is a great idea. Um, Nitrile gloves are best practice. Typically, people I think that cotton gloves are good, but they tend to shed and you can't feel things through the gloves as easily, and they retain oil, and there's a temptation to reuse them. So nitrile gloves are really the best thing to use. Um, Keep a clean workspace. Anything that you're not using while you're dealing with archival materials could potentially get in the way. Um, no food or drinks. Food and drinks attract pests and can potentially get on objects that you're dealing with. Um, and always place items flat. Don't let them hang off the table, and always use both hands. If you try to take a piece of paper across the room with one hand, it's just law of nature that will crease or fold. Also, boxes that are big that you deal with archives are they tend to bow in the middle. And so always maintain a dry environment for archival items. Don't store things in HVAC closets or bathrooms or near water pipes. They will, of course, damage the um, physical integrity of things, but water also stains and it washes out inks and pigments, like can wash text out of paper, and creates mold, which mold is a really big issue. It contaminates and transfers to other items and it grows. So strategies to avoid this, uh, if you can help it, don't store anything near water pipes, and store things off the ground with shelving. I have some recommendations for archival shelving and the resources. And also, if you have the capacity for it, store things at a relative humidity if you have a really good air conditioning system. And cool, dark storage is also crucial. Light can accelerate decay. UV is also very harmful. Fading and sunburn can occur. So, um, and below you see that in the text on the left there that sun has kind of washed that away. So always store things indoors, away from light, and keep the room temperature close to 70 degrees if you can. And eliminate pests and pollution. So pests will eat archives, and unfortunately that ties back into the food issue. Keep food and drinks away, and also don't store things in places that are prone to chemicals and odors, like where pets live, or in the garage where gas is kept, or there's smoke or exhaust. Pollution also accelerates decay. And strategies for mitigating pollution risk, just keep things. The garage is not a great place to keep things. It's not climate controlled, and there's like a lot of chemicals in the garage usually. And so, with regard to actually housing things and storing them in archival materials, um, lots of times people want to use Tupperware containers, and the plastic can actually trap humidity. So Rubbermaid containers are not the best idea always. The boxes, it's good if the box is breathable, and the moisture inside, if moisture gets trapped inside a box, that will accelerate decay. If you're reusing boxes, you want to make sure that you clean them out so that there are no chemicals or odors left in them, or no residue from them. And don't overstack boxes, as they tend to crush. And if you're using non-archival materials, you will get acid burn, which is a yellowing of paper and objects because of the acidity of the materials. So you want to use acid-free materials from archival sources. Also, storing things in wooden drawers is not a good idea. Wood off gases and will damage other materials over time. So again, at the end, I have a list of resources for archival boxes and shelving for you to look at. With regard to photographs, you want to make sure that you use PAT tested plastic sleeves, and that stands for the photographic activity test. And also, you don't want to put loose objects in boxes, as when you stack them, the box may crush or the object may bounce around in there and get damaged. So if you have to use an oversized box, you want to support the material inside the box with something like foam, or just limit the space inside the box for the object to bounce around in. And with regard to damaged materials, it's kind of beyond the scope of this workshop. It ties into conservation, but there are things that you can do to repair some of the common issues, like brittle newspapers and stuck together photographs. Brittle newspapers are probably best digitized. Stuck together photos can be separated with a clean water bath. Damaged hard drives, for instance, can be repaired, and data can be harvested. If the ports are damaged, they can be resoldered. But it's kind of beyond the scope of what we can talk about here.